Eva ran out of the apartment in a hurry. She had overslept and was late for work. It was good that Ted was so thoughtful. While his beloved was panicking, looking for her things and tidying herself up after a nap, he made her coffee and a hot sandwich with cheese, ham and tomato, the way she liked it. Eva took a bite on the run. There was an important meeting today and she couldn't be late. She kissed Ted goodbye, as always. He gently put his arm around her waist, looking into her eyes with that goosebump-inducing gaze of his. He wished her a good day. He had to go to work later, so he wasn't in any hurry. Eva smiled at her lover and slipped out of the apartment. Ted had once been her salvation, her comfort, and still was. Always cheering her up, supporting her, finding the right and important words. With him, Eva felt easy and calm. She almost forgot to think about Cooper. He now had his own life. Their paths had diverged. Eva quickly ran down the stairs, not waiting for the elevator. It was always busy at this time of day in the apartment building, with so many neighbours. Walking would be faster. But in the parking lot behind the apartment building, Eva suddenly realised she had mixed up the day. The important meeting wasn't today, but tomorrow. She stopped, struck by this thought like a thunderbolt. That's right. It had been rescheduled. That's why she'd set her alarm for later. She hadn't overslept after all. Eva kicked a pebble in front of her, as if it were to blame. Glancing at her watch, the woman realised she still had plenty of time to return home. She could have a quiet coffee with Ted and talk about his treatment. Though Ted didn't like to discuss the subject, often trying to change the conversation topic, it was important to Eva to know what awaited them. He was her closest person, and everything that happened to him affected her directly. Fortunately, his condition seemed to be improving. Ted's treatment had required significant money. Some he found on his own, and Eva offered the rest from the bottom of her heart. She would have done even more to help him. Ted accepted gratefully, promising to repay everything once he recovered. He never detailed his diagnosis, only mentioning it was a genetic heart condition. The treatment was effective, but expensive. Thankfully, Eva stepped in to help. She had money, a decent amount in her bank account. Eva earned well as a lawyer in an oil company. Her father had secured her the position right after university. She couldn't have gotten such a coveted role without experience and connections. But Eva had proven herself, working hard and learning quickly, never shying away from any task. She'd earned her reputation as a conscientious specialist, what led her to subsequent promotion. Yes, Eva had everything she needed for a prosperous life. First, a loving family, her parents with whom she maintained warm, friendly relations. Eva knew they would never leave her in trouble, and this security gave her confidence and strength for further achievements. Second, after university, her father had given his only daughter an apartment in a prestigious area of the city. But at first, Eva hadn't rushed to move in, preferring to live with her parents for now. She disliked being alone. Initially, her father's gift of a beautiful, stylishly furnished apartment had delighted her. She'd even jumped for joy when he handed her the keys. But later, that apartment played an unpleasant role in her life, something Eva preferred not to remember. Now she and Ted shared a rented apartment. They split the payment and household expenses. Well, almost split them. Truth be told, Eva contributed more, but that's just how things worked out. She had a good job with stable income, while Ted worked in construction, his earnings fluctuating with the number and size of projects. Eva feared most repeating what happened with Cooper. She didn't want to lose Ted the same way. That's why she tried not to emphasize financial matters. Ted had a simpler attitude toward everything. Easygoing was probably the best way to describe his personality, and Eva loved that about him. Eva called the elevator and pressed the button, anticipating a quick meeting with her beloved. Ted would definitely be happy to see her. His eyes always lit up with a special fire when they met. The elevator stopped too quickly. The doors slid apart, revealing a bold number 5 painted on the wall. Eva was on the 5th floor, while her apartment was on the 8th. The woman decisively stepped out. She wouldn't continue by elevator. Walking would be better. The elevator in their building had been problematic lately, either getting stuck between floors or, like now, stopping on the wrong floor. Taking the stairs was safer and healthier. As Eva started climbing, she suddenly heard Ted's voice. He was talking to someone on the landing, presumably on the phone since there was no other voice. Eva decided to surprise her lover by sneaking up and jumping out onto the landing. Ted loved such pranks. But then Eva heard something that made her stop and listen. Ted said something that couldn't be ignored. Eva froze. She found herself hanging on every word her lover spoke. The meaning was difficult to grasp since she couldn't hear the other person, but that unknown participant seemed to be trying to dissuade Ted from some plan. Ted argued, resisted and proved his point, revealing new facts that made Eva's blood run cold. It felt like a dream, too surreal to be true. Yet there was no denying what was happening. There he was, standing on the landing, saying these terrible things. When the conversation ended, Ted slammed the door and disappeared into their apartment. Eva couldn't go home. Not now. She needed time to think, to figure out what to do next. Her legs gave way and she sank onto a step, not caring about her light-coloured dress pants. She remembered meeting Ted at a local rock bar, where her friends had taken her to lift her spirits after Cooper. Cooper. Eva had thought their feelings were real, sincere, strong and deep. Everything pointed to it. Though they'd known each other since high school, their romance began in their 3rd year of university. Eva studied at a prestigious law faculty, while Cooper pursued engineering. He'd always excelled in mathematics and had a passion for physics. To Eva, these subjects were like hieroglyphics. Cooper had helped her countless times with tests and homework. She'd always thought him nice, if somewhat shy and modest. Then one day, Eva learned Cooper had long harboured feelings for her but never dared express them. This revelation surprised Eva. She'd never noticed. His confession touched her heart. Warmth washed over Eva, making her dizzy as she smiled. She loved everything he said and the way he looked at her. His gaze was full of love, admiration and devotion. When they started dating, everything seemed perfect. Eva discovered new sides to Cooper and fell deeper in love. He was reliable, caring, loving, sensitive and capable. Raised by a single mother, he'd shouldered adult responsibilities from an early age. This had shaped him into a mature, intelligent and kind man. Eva often witnessed his helpfulness. He'd assist others unprompted, seeing needs and meeting them naturally. He was simply who he was. Whether pushing a stranger's stalled car or helping with heavy bags, he did it all effortlessly and without waiting for reciprocation. Cooper treated Eva with tender care, always anticipating her needs. He frequently expressed his love. Their relationship seemed perfect, except for one thing. It didn't happen immediately. The changes crept in gradually. At first, Eva tried to ignore it, but as time passed it became increasingly difficult. The root of it all lay in their vastly different financial situations. Eva came from a wealthy family. Right after graduation, she landed a job with an excellent salary and owned both an apartment and a beautiful car, all gifts from her parents. At her age, she couldn't have earned these things herself. Cooper's life was different. He grew up without a father, his mother working as a cleaner from dawn until night. She cleaned multiple buildings to support her children. As the oldest, with 3 younger sisters, Cooper became their caretaker during his teenage years. He started working at 13, taking whatever jobs he could find, washing cars, unloading trucks, anything to help his mother. During university, he secured an internship at a design bureau in his field. After graduating, he became a full-time employee, but wasn't satisfied with his salary. Entry-level positions rarely paid well, unless you had connections, like Eva did. Cooper couldn't provide Eva with the lifestyle she was accustomed to, and this weighed heavily on him. But Eva didn't care about clubs, restaurants, or expensive things. She understood what mattered most: being with someone understanding and supportive, someone who made her feel peaceful and safe. That's what Cooper gave her. Eva wanted to show Cooper the world. He'd never travelled anywhere. Though she could easily afford trips for both of them, he declined every offer, even as a birthday present. "Eva, I'm already struggling with that income difference. Are you trying to crush me completely?" Cooper would ask bitterly, clearly uncomfortable. Eva tried to ease the tension, but her attempts only made things worse. Cooper's enjoyment of life was hampered by what Eva saw as an outdated belief: that a man must be the provider, no exceptions. Cooper worked hard, climbing the career ladder, but in his mind, his growing income was never enough. However, despite this one source of tension, they were happy together. They met almost every evening, taking walks, sharing their days and laughing together. Cooper gradually became Eva's whole world. She even stopped meeting her friends, as none of them understood her the way he did. Their connection felt incredible. Later, Eva would regret starting that particular conversation, knowing how sensitive such topics were. That evening in the park, Cooper was sharing news about a job offer, a lower position at another company, but with better pay and prospects. He was hesitant to leave his current project unfinished. Eva listened, supportive, assuring him she'd back any decision he made. But her mind was elsewhere, preparing to make an important proposal she had been considering for a while. She wanted to live with Cooper, to share their daily lives, to care for each other. They'd been dating for a long time, both adults, yet still living with their families, dating like teenagers, really. Eva felt it was time to make a more mature step. "Cooper, how do you feel about living together?" she finally asked. She knew such proposals typically came from men, but Cooper was focused on his career and business plans. His mind seemed occupied with those serious matters rather than living arrangements. "I really want this," she added. Cooper stopped walking and gently took her face in his palms, a tender gesture she loved. "That's wonderful. I think about it too, how good it would be to live together. But now isn't the right time. I'm working on building a solid financial foundation for our future family, but I'm not ready yet. And it's difficult for me to say this, but Cooper, I want to be with you all the time. We're still dating like schoolchildren, returning to our parents' house at night." "But we're adults. I want more. I can't rent an apartment right now." Cooper lowered his eyes. Again, he felt ashamed that he couldn't provide a dignified existence for himself and his beloved. "You know, I'm saving every penny for my business now. I have an idea. If it works out, the profits will be more than decent, and everything will be fine." "I don't want to be happy in some mythical future." Eva pulled away from Cooper, anger rising within her. She had thought her lover would support her idea. "Why complicate everything by renting an apartment? I have one. Beautiful, large, spacious. Just imagine how happy we'll be there." "Your apartment, your car, your money," Cooper said, his temper flaring. Eva realized she had hit his sore spot again, but the words couldn't be taken back. "You're constantly reminding me who I am, making me feel unworthy of you." "That's not true. I love you, you know that. I just don't understand why we can't live together in my apartment now. What's the big deal?" "I don't want to feel like a freeloader, living off a girl who's in love with me. Is that so challenging to understand?" "I'm sick of you." Eva was amazed at herself. Her frustration with Cooper's principles had been building up and finally erupted. "I don't care about your money. It doesn't matter at all." "It does matter." Cooper shook his head, his eyes filled with pain and sadness. "You know how hard it is for me to overcome this financial barrier between us." "There is no barrier," Eva shouted. "You've built these walls in your head, and you don't even realize they're meaningless." "It is important. A man has to be a provider, has to provide for his family." "No, those are outdated stereotypes." "No." Cooper shook his head. Eva was furious with him. She wanted to shake these antiquated ideas about gender roles out of his head. They were doing so well. They loved each other, understood each other, supported each other. Eva knew such relationships were rare, and now Cooper was destroying everything because of his outdated beliefs. "Eva," Cooper looked into her eyes, "I realized long ago that I'm not worthy of you." "What nonsense! What are you doing?" Eva blinked in confusion, suddenly understanding this was serious. This wasn't their usual quarrel that would blow over. This was different. "I don't want to spoil your life. You deserve more. I don't know how my attempts to achieve something will end, and you need to live now." "Cooper!" Eva exclaimed, grabbing his arm. "Are you leaving me?" "I'm just stepping aside," he said, lowering his eyes, "so you can find someone better." Eva was overwhelmed by emotion, her vision blurring. Cooper had said something unthinkable. He was leaving her. All she'd wanted was to live together, to feel like family. He must have lied about everything, she thought. Maybe he'd never truly loved me, and this financial difference was just an excuse to leave, because he was tired of me. Eva felt the blood drain from her face, and Cooper's expression turned to concern. "What's wrong? Are you ill?" "You lied about your feelings. Pretended," Eva managed to say, fighting back tears. "When I suggested living together, you got scared of commitment and decided to break things off." "You're wrong. Shut up! You're nothing but a cheater and a traitor. I never want to see or hear from you again." "I love you. That's why I'm stepping aside. Believe me, it's for your own good. I'm failing. I'm a loser." "Stop lying. You've been lying all along. You wanted an easy relationship, and as soon as it got serious, you decided to run." Eva could see her words were hurting Cooper. He tried to explain himself, but she wouldn't listen. She hurled accusations without recognizing herself. If she were Cooper, she would have left such a hysterical woman long ago. But he stayed, trying to calm her, as if he cared. Not that it mattered. He was still leaving her, for her own good. It ended with Cooper holding Eva tightly until she calmed down. Then he apologized and called her a cab. That was it. Over between them, just like that. Strange and unexpected, at least for Eva. Cooper, it seemed, had been contemplating this breakup for a while. Eva missed Cooper physically, his smell, his touch, his voice. It was fortunate she was on vacation. She simply couldn't work in such a state. She lay in her room all day, eating occasionally at her mother's insistence, not even turning on the TV or picking up a book. Everything had suddenly ceased to interest her. Cooper had said it would hurt them both, yet he remained absolutely certain of his decision. He sincerely believed Eva would be better off without him. It was all because of his attitudes, outdated, irrational, utterly stupid. Or perhaps he hadn't loved her that deeply. Who had she been to him? Before, Eva thought Cooper considered her his closest and dearest person. Now she wasn't sure at all. Most likely, she had invented an ideal person, an ideal relationship, overwhelming him with her love and care. So he'd crafted an excuse to leave. "I'm complex. I'm not worthy of you." Eva's girlfriends came to visit, the very ones she'd neglected for Cooper's sake. They proved to be truly close friends, supporting, encouraging, and trying to distract her. "Good riddance," Angela assured her. "He truly isn't worthy of you. He knows he's a loser compared to you." "You'll find 1,000,000 better men than Cooper," Alex chimed in. Eva remained silent, not arguing. She knew there wouldn't be 1,000,000 Coopers. There was only one. Eventually her friends managed to drag her to a bar, despite her initial protests. By then, she had somewhat recovered from the shock of the breakup. She had to come to terms with the fact that she and Cooper had no future. It was difficult, but time heals, and her girlfriends tried their best, something Eva deeply appreciated. Through mutual acquaintances, she learned that Cooper had thrown himself into work. He was at a new company building a business. He had become withdrawn, wasn't socializing, and hadn't started dating anyone new. Strangely, this pleased Eva. It would have been harder if he'd left her for someone else. That evening, at the bar, was lively and crowded. The friends first listened to the local rock band in the main hall, before moving to the karaoke room. The atmosphere felt like a house party. People lounged on soft armchairs and comfortable puffs, enjoying themselves, chatting and singing along with those at the microphone. Strangers chatted like old friends. It had always been like this here, the reason her friends loved this rock bar. Eva nestled in the corner of the room, scanning the crowd for familiar faces. Her friends had stepped out to the smoking room for a while. Eva stayed behind. She only smoked when drinking, and tonight she was driving. She felt surprisingly good. The soul pain ache had subsided somewhat, and she even felt like dancing. She thought about suggesting her friends head to a club later. That's when Ted stepped up to the microphone. Though Eva didn't know his name yet. He had bright eyes and a charming smile. His grey fitted t-shirt, faded jeans and sneakers suited him perfectly. Then Ted began to sing. It was a song about an unreachable beauty who had captured a rocker's heart. His voice was strong and pleasant, though his pitch was completely off. Despite his poor pitch, people loved his performance. They sang along and clapped. Ted kept catching Eva's eyes. She realized he was singing just for her, dedicating the most heartfelt lines to her alone. There was no mistaking it. As the song ended, he approached the stunned Eva and gracefully knelt before her like a knight. It was beautiful and elegant. People watched with interest. Eva felt their gazes and grew shy, but the young man seemed completely at ease. When the music stopped, he handed off the microphone and settled onto the beanbag chair beside Eva without asking. She didn't mind. Something about this young man intrigued her. "Hello, beauty with the sad eyes." He smiled charmingly. "I'm Ted. And what's your name, beautiful stranger?" Eva looked into his sparkling dark eyes and sensed something new beginning in her life. For the first time since breaking up with Cooper, she felt beautiful again, and she savoured that feeling. So they began dating. Ted radiated positive energy, a true life of the party, who told entertaining stories about himself and his friends. The sociable guy knew everyone. People constantly greeted him or stopped to chat wherever he and Eva went. Soon Ted suggested they live together. He took the initiative himself. Eva was glad. She loved the atmosphere he created around him. With him, she forgot all her problems, never dwelled on negative thoughts, and simply enjoyed life. Ted knew how to have fun, and his mood was contagious. Remembering Cooper's reaction, Eva didn't tell Ted that she had an apartment. They decided to rent a place instead. Since both were working, they could afford it. Ted had a simpler outlook on life. He wasn't bothered that Eva drove a beautiful car while he couldn't afford such transportation. In fact, he often asked to drive her car. He would put on an exaggerated air of importance that Eva found hilarious, blast the music, and speed down the highway with the gas pedal pressed to the floor. Eva felt completely happy. She had everything, including a cheerful, laid-back boyfriend who loved her. At least, that's what he frequently told her. Ted was quite different from Cooper. Though less reliable and nurturing, he had an easygoing personality and knew how to enjoy life. He was never dull, which Eva appreciated. Yet she probably wasn't in love with Ted the way she had been with Cooper. Ted became her lifeline, a salvation she clung to. Occasionally, Eva would hear about Cooper through mutual friends, and her heart would still ache at the mention of his name. She realized her feelings for him hadn't completely cooled. It was an odd, uncomfortable sensation, but Eva hoped it would fade with time. Ted lived in the moment, rarely thinking about or planning for the future. He was content with his unstable, modest-paying job. He loved bars, clubs, and parties, and drew Eva into that lifestyle. While she enjoyed having fun, she sometimes found it exhausting. Nevertheless, everything in Eva's life seemed perfect, almost cloudless, until Ted's illness struck suddenly. The once energetic young man began feeling unwell, tiring quickly, experiencing swelling and dizziness. Eva insisted he get examined. The doctor's verdict was devastating. Ted was diagnosed with a serious illness. Eva couldn't believe it. The image of playful Ted seemed incompatible with any disease. But without treatment, the prognosis was grim. Ted started taking his health seriously, visiting doctors regularly. Treatment was available but expensive. The free healthcare option meant a long wait, during which Ted's condition could worsen significantly. Eva offered him the money herself. Though initially reluctant, he eventually accepted with gratitude and promised to repay her. He looked uncharacteristically serious at that moment. Without hesitation, Eva withdrew her savings of several years. It was a substantial amount, enough to buy a new mid-range car. "I appreciate this so much," Ted said sincerely, holding the money. "Now I'll do everything for you." "First, beat this disease," Eva said with encouraging smile. Ted started treatment. He received infusions and expensive medications. The results came quickly. He soon regained his former energy and enthusiasm. Eva was overjoyed. His recovery progressed well once he had begun proper treatment. Though he couldn't work as before, and Eva became the main provider for their small family, this didn't bother her at all. Ted seemed unbothered too, which pleased Eva. She remembered how Cooper had struggled when he appeared less financially secure than his partner. That had ultimately ended their relationship. Ted, however, didn't care about such matters. He focused on what he considered important: their relationship, mutual care, love, and maintaining his cheerful nature. And until recently, Eva thought she knew Ted completely. He had never hidden anything from her, even truths that showed him in an unfavourable light. Ted had always been honest about his mistakes. It was endearing, really. He lowered his head, spoke softly, smiled sheepishly, but an overheard conversation in the stairwell changed everything. Eva realized she had lived for almost a year under the same roof with a stranger. A real monster. A skilled manipulator. And an Oscar-worthy actor. Ted had only pretended to be a simple, honest, straightforward guy. In reality, he was a terrible man with hidden, ugly depths. "That vile creature will get what she deserves. She'll shower in her tears." These words from Ted made Eva freeze on the landing below. He had never spoken so aggressively before. His tone was entirely different, filled with anger, irritation, even hatred. Eva pressed against the wall, close enough to hear every word clearly. "She has no idea who she's dealing with." Ted continued speaking to someone on the phone. "I've thought it all through. 2 birds with 1 stone. Even 3. Of course I'm sure. I know exactly what I'm doing. I'll get revenge on that witch for humiliating me, plus make some money. She owes me for everything." Eva struggled to make sense of it all. Something sinister was clearly brewing. But what? Who was Ted planning to hurt? And how? Eva listened more intently, determined to understand. "What can she possibly do? I'm his father. That fool put me on the birth certificate herself, trying to trap me with her and her brat. Well, let her deal with it now." Ted laughed, harsh and cold. "What consequences? Please. I'll frighten her so badly she won't dare go to the police. I'll have her precious little brat in my hands. I'll take the kid away. The possibilities are endless, you know." Eva's breath caught. The meaning was clear. Ted was planning to kidnap a child, his own son, according to the birth certificate. A chill ran down Eva's spine. This was monstrous. She had to learn more to prevent this atrocity. "I've got money," Ted continued, his voice calmer now. "Eva gave me some for my supposed treatment. She's such a fool, believes everything I tell her. All I need is a car, something unremarkable. I'm counting on your help. Don't try to talk me out of it. My mind's made up. I need the money, understand? I want to leave, go somewhere by the sea, settle down, start fresh, maybe open my own bar. Always dreamed of that. Hazel deserves what's coming. She has debts to pay. Time to settle up." Hazel. This name Eva had heard from Ted before by chance. That evening, Eva was taking the bus home, since her car was being repaired. It was late, the neighbourhood rough, darkness everywhere. Eva hurried toward home, alert to every strange sound. Her new sandals were rubbing her heel raw. Despite the excitement and desire to get to her cosy room as soon as possible, the girl sat down at the entrance of one of the neighbouring houses. With relief, she removed the painful sandals, letting the cool evening air soothe her blistered heel. Suddenly, she heard Ted's voice and felt a surge of joy. How wonderful that he'd finished work, that they'd met by chance. Now they could walk home together. She wouldn't feel scared any more. He might even carry her. Eva was almost certain he would. Ted had regained his strength, returned to his old self. She wouldn't even need to ask. One mention of her sore heel, and he'd offer to help. He always took such gentle care of her. Meanwhile, Ted was buzzing one of the intercoms in the building's entrance. Eva assumed he must have friends living there. She was about to call out when someone answered the intercom, a woman's voice trembling with fear or rage. "Get out before I call the police!" "You know what I want, Hazel," Ted snapped. "You know what to do to make me leave you alone." Eva felt jealousy flare in her heart, pure jealousy. The thought of her boyfriend speaking so intimately with another woman unsettled her. They seemed like former lovers, mid-quarrel. Eva concluded this must be an ex-girlfriend, and clearly their feelings hadn't fully cooled. "Go to hell!" The woman cut off the intercom. Ted cursed viciously and slammed his fist against the door. As he turned to leave, he spotted Eva on the bench. "Baby, what are you doing here?" he asked, his voice completely transformed. Before her sat the Ted she thought she knew, tender, kind, good. Eva mentioned her blister, and, as expected, he scooped her up and carried her home. Of course, Eva asked questions. She did not hide the fact that she had heard Ted talking to the owner of the rare name Hazel. "It's a girl I used to date," Ted explained reluctantly. "We broke up terribly. She is a dishonest person. Hazel owes me money, a large sum. She cheated me once. I wouldn't give a damn about the money to avoid dealing with her, but I'm in a situation, you see, with this disease. Treatment requires money. I can't work properly now, so I'm trying to get her to pay me back." "Don't go to her any more," Eva pleaded. "If you need money, I'll get it. But don't contact her, please." "You've helped me a lot already." Ted shook his head. "If it hadn't been for you, who knows what would have happened to me now." And now, in this conversation on the landing between floors, Ted mentioned Hazel again. As Eva listened to Ted, the situation became clearer. Ted and Hazel had a son together, and Ted was listed as the father on the boy's birth certificate. Hazel refused to let Ted see the child, though Ted himself showed little interest in the boy, caring only about money, and he had found a way to get what he wanted. Ted planned something terrible, to take the child away. Hazel, as Eva realized, was wealthy and could give Ted anything he demanded for her son's sake. Ted's interlocutor, whom Eva couldn't hear, was clearly trying to dissuade him. Ted kept making arguments to support his decision. "The police won't do anything to me. According to all the documents, I'm the father of this baby. She thought to tie me to her that way, and now she regrets it, but it's too late. A father has the right to take his child at any time. It won't even be considered kidnapping." He had thought of everything. Cunning, calculating, unscrupulous. And Eva had trusted him, just as Hazel once did. After finishing his terrible conversation and his cigarette, Ted went back to the apartment. Eva didn't go upstairs. Instead, she sank on the cold step, wondering what to do. Ted was clearly a monster. He had planned a terrible crime, and Eva knew she had to prevent this tragedy. She needed to warn Hazel. Fortunately, Eva knew which building and entrance the woman lived in. She called her boss claiming illness and was given the day off. Perfect. Now, she had time to help Hazel. Hazel was likely unaware of the danger looming over her. Eva went directly to her building and called the first apartment she could and asked for Hazel. "She lives in 153, the elderly woman replied, and hung up. With trembling fingers, Eva dialed 153 on the intercom. She expected no answer, assuming Hazel would be at work, but after 2 rings, a woman's voice responded. "7th floor, come in." Hazel was clearly expecting someone, probably a delivery. Eva entered and took the elevator up. The door to apartment 153 stood ajar. Hazel waited in the doorway. "Oh, you're not the pizza delivery?" she asked, puzzled. She was tall, beautiful, 10 years Eva's senior, and impeccably groomed and stylish. "I'm sorry, I thought it was the delivery." "Mum, is the pizza here?" A 4-year-old boy appeared at the doorstep. Ted's son. The resemblance was striking, and not just in appearance. "Peter, no, go to your room," Hazel told her son. He obeyed immediately. "And you're here about?" she asked, looking at Eva questioningly. Eva took a deep breath. She hadn't planned how to begin this conversation. "It's a very long and difficult story," she said finally. "First, I must warn you, you and your child are in danger." Fear flashed across Hazel's face, but she quickly composed herself. "Ted," she said, and Eva nodded. Hazel led Eva to the kitchen. The apartment was stylish, clearly showing its owner's wealth. No wonder Ted hoped to profit from her. Eva told everything she had heard by chance on the playground. Hazel listened without interrupting, her face taking on an increasingly puzzled expression. "He'll do it," she said when Eva had finished. "He's a frightening man. He will stop at nothing." "But you know everything now. We have to do something to stop him. Maybe he'll go away somewhere." "That won't help. I already ran away from him once in this town. I bought an apartment here. I thought it was all in the past, but Ted found me, rented an apartment nearby, He started threatening me, and now he wants to take our son. It's horrible. Isn't there anything you can do? You need a lawyer." "I guess there is," Hazel said, a little calmer. "I don't know how to thank you for warning me. If it wasn't for you, he'd have taken Peter and made ropes out of me. I would have given him anything to get my son back. At first, Ted seemed perfect to me. I thanked fate for our chance meeting. I was already a business owner when I met him. He was this handsome, modest guy who approached me at a club where my colleagues and I were celebrating another victory. He was charming, open and young. He complimented me, gave me admiring glances. I knew he was younger, and our status was very different, but I couldn't help myself. I fell under his charm completely. It hadn't happened to me in a long time. Usually I look at things soberly and evaluate everything practically, but suddenly I was floating. Ted has a talent for offering what people want. He notices weaknesses and desires immediately. He uses that to achieve his goals. A born manipulator. Eva nodded. She couldn't help but agree with Hazel. Many things about her own relationship with Ted now took on new meaning after this overheard conversation. He had manipulated Eva to offer him money, and she had been glad he took it. Hazel, successful and mature, had lost her head over the charming young man. They had a passionate romance that led to her pregnancy. She was happy about it. She wasn't getting any younger. Her friends all had babies, and her personal life had been lacking. Being a successful woman, men were usually intimidated by her, but not Ted. He didn't care about such things. Hazel loved showering him with gifts. She enjoyed seeing him smile, liked making him happy. But the news of her pregnancy didn't delight Ted. Hazel understood why. He was young, hadn't lived enough for himself, wasn't planning for a family. Soon after, Ted disappeared, though not completely. He stayed in the city, frequenting bars and cafes, picking up new girls, but he cut all ties with Hazel. I'm ashamed to remember it now, but I was under his spell. I was hurt, devastated. I tried to get him back, caught him, humiliated myself, even stalked him at clubs and bars. What a fool I was. There I stood, with my big belly in the early morning, watching Ted leaving a club with some other girl. Maybe it was the pregnancy hormones. I'm used to getting what I want, and it was such a blow. I didn't realise who Ted really was then. Just a common gold digger, living off wealthy women, incapable of serious relationships or genuine feelings. When Peter was born, Hazel listed Ted as the father, hoping to make him take responsibility, something he actively avoided. 2 years passed, and Hazel found peace. She had almost forgotten about Ted, focusing entirely on her son, the charming little Peter. Life was good. She had a healthy child, prosperity, and a business that brought steady income. Then suddenly, Ted, the same man she used to chase, appeared out of the blue. Hazel was initially hopeful, though rekindling their relationship was out of the question. She welcomed the idea of Peter having contact with his father. She thought Ted had matured and recognised his mistakes. But it was something else entirely. Ted wanted money. He claimed she owed him for stealing his youth, for using him to have a baby. He spouted other nonsense too. It all came down to one thing. Ted knew she had money, and he demanded it. As he put it, he wanted compensation for my deception. Can you imagine? Hazel was first surprised, then indignant, then laughed in Ted's face. But he didn't back down. Instead, Ted began a real pursuit. He would wait for Hazel and Peter at stores, near the office, even right at their building entrance. He alternated between threats and pleas, begging Hazel to understand his position. Her mistake was giving him small sums of money at first, just to get him off their backs. It worked, but only briefly. Finally, Hazel packed up and moved with her son far away from Ted. Moving was a difficult decision. She had to make many changes. But Hazel didn't regret anything. Living in another city made her feel safe. Only he found us after a while anyway, and his demands multiplied. Hazel shook her head sadly. And now this. He's decided to steal Peter. That's crossing a line. What about the police? Suggested Eva. I'll be a witness. I heard everything. There's no proof, sighed Hazel. Besides, Ted is right. Peter is his son, and a father has the right to see his child. But it's not Peter that Ted wants, it's my money. I'd give him everything if I knew he'd leave me alone, but he won't. Not if I keep playing by the rules. Men like him need to be fought with their own tactics. Do you have a plan? Eva asked. She could tell by Hazel's expression that she was contemplating something serious. A plan B for emergencies. I didn't want to use it, but it seems we've reached that point. Eva walked along the embankment with Cooper. Yes, they were together again, holding hands and planning their wedding. It would be a beautiful celebration, a lavish feast, an engaging programme, and many guests. Hazel and little Peter would be there too. The boy would even carry the cushion with the wedding rings. During his time apart from Eva, Cooper had thrown himself into developing his business. Now he owned a profitable auto repair shop that provided steady, substantial income. He had done it all for Eva, the woman he loved more than life itself. Cooper would move mountains for her, and he'd achieved exactly what he'd set out to do. He no longer felt insecure about Eva being from a wealthy family. Now, Cooper had become successful himself, a young promising entrepreneur who could easily afford restaurant dinners and seaside vacations. A few months ago, Cooper arrived at Eva's office and waited for her, watching the entrance. When he saw her leave the building, he rushed to her with a bouquet of flowers. Cooper spoke sincere and heartfelt words about their misunderstanding, looking at her in such a way that made her head spin. I was a fool, I know. I made everything complicated and nearly ruined it all with my own hands, but now that's all in the past. The separation has proven to me that my feelings for you are something incredible and unique. It won't happen again. Will you forgive me? Instead of answering, Eva hugged him tightly, pressing herself against him. It was him, Cooper, beloved, real, familiar. Only when she was next to him did Eva realize how much she had missed him. He stroked her back and promised that everything would be all right now. Eva believed him and melted with happiness. She told Cooper about Ted and Hazel. Though Cooper knew Eva had met someone during their separation, he had no idea of the danger she had faced. If only I had been there for you, this horrible story wouldn't have happened to you. Yes, but who knows what would have happened to Hazel and Peter then? Eva shook her head. Ted was far away now, and definitely would never set foot in this town again. Hazel had hired someone, though she didn't share specifics. She told Eva the general details of her plan. She would never have approached these people if not for the threat of losing her baby. Unable to risk Peter's safety, she had paid someone to have a serious talk with Ted. One early summer morning, Hazel and Peter came out of their building when Ted appeared from nowhere. He rushed at them, trying to snatch the child from her arms, convinced his plan was perfect. Ted didn't know they were being watched. He expected to take the child forcefully from a surprised Hazel and flee to a neighbouring town. He had already rented an apartment there with Eva's money, planning to wait for Hazel's ransom payment. He was certain the frightened mother would pay. But thanks to Eva's warning, Hazel was prepared. Two sturdy men who had been protecting the mother and child emerged from a nearby parked car. They grabbed Ted, subdued him, forced him into the car and took him somewhere for a thorough discussion. After that, Ted left town. He packed his things and disappeared, never to be mentioned again. Hazel hinted to Eva that these men were professionals who knew how to be persuasive. "It's fortunate you overheard Ted's conversation and warned me," Hazel later told Eva. "If it hadn't been for you—" They were friends now, Hazel and Eva, discovering they had much in common. "Well, Ted does have good taste," Hazel joked, and Eva smiled, unable to disagree. It's true what people say. Sometimes misfortune leads to happiness. Through Ted, Eva had found both a friend and reclaimed her love. Strange as it seemed, she felt grateful to him for that.